1999 saw a seismic shift in pop culture with the release of The Matrix. With its themes of artificial reality, ascending to a higher plane of consciousness, and fighting for one's true identity, it was a smash hit, and its impact on filmmaking is still being felt to this day. But these days, whenever someone brings up The Matrix on the internet, there's pretty much a guarantee someone will also bring up 1998's Dark City. Although Dark City tackles similar themes, it's easy to see why The Matrix was the one to catch on, while Dark City was unfortunately condemned to box office failure. But if the ideas behind The Matrix fascinate you, there's still plenty to enjoy in this less action-packed, but far stranger and much darker sci-fi neo-noir. Before we talk about that though, this video is sponsored by my gaming channel, SideQuest. Up until recently, it's really just been a fun hobby, but recently we've committed to really growing the channel. Our main two series right now are deep dives, video essays, in-depth reviews, and other analytical videos on our favourite or indeed least favourite games, and Licensed Game Hell, a gameplay series where we sit down and have a laugh playing games exclusively licensed from movies and TV shows. We upload something new every 2 weeks, alternating between the two series. It would really mean a great deal if you could show the same support to SideQuest as you've done on this channel. Head over by clicking the link down below to check out our videos, as well as subscribing so you can stay up to date with all the new uploads. Thanks again for supporting what I do, and with this promo out of the way, let's get stuck into the video you came to see. Dark City is honestly kind of hard to talk about in detail because so much of the film's enjoyment comes from not knowing anything about it in advance. It is a mystery after all. There's no Joseph Campbell hero's journey here. Instead, we're thrown right into the deep end with our protagonist Murdoch waking up in a hotel room with no idea who he is or how he got there. He's further perplexed by this bizarre nightmare world where everyone falls asleep at midnight and the city itself shifts and changes in the direction of some unseen force. Compounding this are apparent psionic abilities he possesses and strange pale-skinned men hunting him for reasons unknown. If this all sounds really unusual, don't worry, that's all part of why it works. Rather than the grand discovery of the truth behind the real world as we see in The Matrix, guided by some terrifically written delivered exposition, Dark City has its protagonist on the run from minute one, racing to unravel what's going on before he meets whatever cruel fate no doubt awaits him. There isn't really a moment where the curtain is pulled back. Rather, the movie creates an eerie, chaotic, and uncanny atmosphere straight off the bat. Wherever Murdoch has found himself, there is clearly something deeply wrong with this world, but he is apparently the only one who notices anything out of the ordinary. However, it's this sense of unease which makes Dark City such a compelling watch, as long as you go into it fresh. It's a grand puzzle, the pieces of which neatly slide together throughout the film. At first, all we have are questions, which is what makes the eventual answers so satisfying. If I sound vague as hell, again that's on purpose. The goal of this video series after all is to recommend movies and shows to people they may not have seen. While I will be getting into spoilers later in this video, I do think it's best if you know as little as possible about the actual plot before watching, which is probably why it flopped in the first place. It was just so difficult to market. So instead, I thought I'd take a moment to talk about the great filmmaking in Dark City. Dark City is what I like to call a blender movie. The kind of film which has so clearly pulled tropes and iconography from totally different sources and blended them together through the lens of science fiction. The Matrix is actually a great example of this as well. How do you put John Woo gunplay, Hong Kong martial arts, and anime-inspired time warping into a single movie? Well, make it a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk featuring an artificial reality, so the stylized action is not just an aesthetic but part of the plot itself. And in Dark City's case, how do you put detective noir, German expressionism, and gothic horror into a single movie? Well, as I said, we'll get into spoilers later. But just like The Matrix, smashing together such disparate elements, rather than being jarring or messy, creates something which feels wholly original, even with such obvious inspirations. While the atmosphere of the movie is gloomy and disconcerting, visually it's absolutely gorgeous. The heavy use of shadow and tertiary rather than primary colours gives the entire movie this Edward Hopper painting look. The city itself, which samples different architecture styles from different eras and countries, makes it look labyrinthine to navigate. While the visual effects are at times inconsistent, the miniature work is especially strong, and the level of imagination on display overrides the shortcomings with the more dated digital effects. The visuals are also complemented by Trevor Jones's excellent score, totally nailing that abnormal atmosphere but also elevating the emotion and action when needed. While none of the characters are particularly deep, the cast all perform brilliantly. William Hurt is in his element as Detective Bumstead, the detective on Murdoch's trail, who likewise starts to uncover something not quite right about the city. And Kiefer Sutherland is transformative as Dr. Schreiber. I've always felt like Sutherland is a truly talented character actor, often typecast as Jack Bauer, but Dark City is a great showcase of his range. And then there's Richard O'Brien of Rocky Horror Picture Show fame being delightfully campy in a really creepy way as the esoteric Mr. Hand. The only weak link is Jennifer Connelly as Emma, not because of her performance, the character is just rather thin, but Connelly is a great actress whose overqualification for the role makes the character memorable at the very least. Rufus Sewell is a capable leading man, but he also doesn't have the screen presence of the traditional dashing hero. There's an air of suspicion around him, which accentuates the opening act and has greater implications for the ending, but to touch on that, we have to get into some spoiler territory. So this is your big spoiler warning. If I've intrigued you so far, go see this movie and then come back, or skip to this timestamp. Okay, that's the spoiler warning out of the way, here we go. As I said, there isn't really a big twist in Dark City so much as there is a putting together of all the puzzle pieces. By the time Dr. Schreiber lays it all out, the viewer has likely put most of it together themselves, but the exposition helps clarify a few things and gives us a breather before the climax. The alien beings known only as the Strangers have abducted hundreds, if not thousands of humans to place in an experiment to find the blueprints for the soul in the hopes of saving their dying race. As a concept, it is absolutely buck wild, but utterly fascinating as well. Although Dark City is often compared to The Matrix for its themes about false reality, the core ideas in both films are quite different. In Dark City, we know something is wrong with this world from very early on. The setting not being the real world isn't the big reveal, but rather the exact motivations of the Strangers and how they created this city. The film essentially postulates that memories and experiences are not what makes up a person. Rather, there is some other element, something elusive and difficult to fully quantify, which the Strangers have no hope of properly attaining. This is an area of the story which is left deliberately ambiguous for the audience to ponder, because while several characters are given new memories and identities throughout the film, there's always an echo of who they were before, parts of their personality, the way they interact with those around them, which remain. The hotel clerk, the couple having dinner, and even Emma herself when she becomes Anna at the end of the movie. This also extends to the world itself. A detail I absolutely love is Schreiber not remembering where the Strangers abducted everyone from. There is no Earth to the people of this city. The city itself is an echo of something they have all forgotten, which is what makes the ending far more ambivalent than one may think on first viewing. It's one of the rare times a mystery story is enhanced by the audience having knowledge the characters don't. By the end of the film, Murdoch knows there is nothing beyond the city. He has no knowledge of Earth or even if there are other planets he can take the city to. To him there is the city and then nothing, but he's weirdly at peace with this knowledge. He essentially went from seeing the shadows on the cave wall to being the one projecting the shadows. While ostensibly it's a victory over the Strangers, we have to wonder, is Murdoch really the better ruler of this world? Is it a world which can really sustain? This is why I feel like Rufus Sewell's casting works so well, because oftentimes the guy plays villains. And having been granted the power to shape the world any way he wants, and effectively punish those who anger him, this may not be the sunshine and roses ending we think it is. And that's what I love most about Dark City. Roger Ebert called it a generous movie. It passed the threshold of accomplishing what it needed to, but it goes further, presenting us with a visual and auditory feast, but also plenty of ideas to satiate our brains for years to come. While Dark City was a box office flop and its themes outshone by the smash hit of The Matrix, its legacy has endured since its initial release. While it is often compared to The Matrix, it's ultimately a wholly different experience, tackling related but separate ideas. Over the years, the film has developed a strong cult following, and its influence on other movies like Christopher Nolan's Inception is self-evident. In 2008, the film was given a great Blu-ray release, which includes the director's cut along with the original cut with solid bonus features. While the director's cut is the better version, the theatrical cut is totally solid as well. I'd highly recommend picking up this release if you want to give it a go. If you've never heard of this one, I hope my video has convinced you it's worth your time, and most certainly worth your thoughts. Thank you for watching. If you like these videos, subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on my new uploads. If you want to help the channel grow, join my patrons or my YouTube members, where you can see videos early as well as some other exclusive content. Speaking of which, I'd like to quickly thank